If you're working in bright water conditions, it's the easiest because you've got, like this, in this scene, we're in 20, 30 feet of water, so I can point down at the bottom, and I can point horizontal, and then I can also point the camera straight up. And then in those scenes, I can use one exposure setting for that entire range. But that only works when you're in shallow water. So also in a scene like this, I have to say, well, I'm going to pick one white balance to use in that zone. So I'm going to kind of pick something in the middle. So when I'm pointing down, it's a little green. And then when I kind of get mid-water, color looks a little better. Then right when I get up to the top, I don't want it to go pink. So I kind of set a zone for my white balance, and I set a zone for my exposure that'll work in that whole scene. The problem in darker conditions, or when you're working over deeper water, is the lights could really compress. So now I don't have that white sand, at the bottom, kind of helping light the whole scene. So here's a clip that I have trashed because you can see as I pan down, I have to keep opening the aperture to see how those exposure changes are kind of click, click, click. And you can really notice those changes. So you kind of, when you do a big pan like that, or this is a big tilt, going from bright to dark, you really have to just throw that away because you're not going to really get a scene that's smoothly exposed to the whole range. So best to really think, hey, what's the zone I'm going to be shooting in? So, I'm going to be on the bottom, I'm going to shoot in this zone, I'll be good. I can tilt up a little bit, I can tilt down a little bit, but I can't do the full range. So sometimes while you're shooting, this little meter on the back is really your guide on your exposure. And sometimes the camera says, oh, I've been recording for a while and I'm kind of, I want to go to sleep. So this exposure information goes away. You may be still in a live shot. So if you hit the start button on the back of a Canon camera, this info will still come up without you accidentally hitting a photo. A lot of people think, oh, well, these DSLRs are great because I can shoot photo and video, but if you shoot a photo in the middle of your movie, it's that little clip, so that might be the best frame of all. That clip is just dropped out of your movie. So it's a great photo, but now that whole clip's ruined. So tapping the shutter is really dangerous while you're recording. So we've got our focus locks, we've kind of zoned our white balance, we've zoned our exposure to a certain range. Now once you have that set, now it's time for me, this is the hardest part, is I have to get out of photographer mode and into video shooter mode, and that's all about stability. So herky-jerky camera is just going to make people seasick and really torture your family and friends. So stability and smoothness is the most important thing. So what I like to do is I like to have a rig that I can shoot either on the bottom or mid-water and not have to change it all the time. So like with a tripod set up like this, I can have it on the boat with the legs folded up, and I don't have this separate tripod that I have to take on and off. I can set it on the bottom, shoot some really stable shots, or I can use just a couple of the legs as stability when I'm shooting in mid-water. So I'll have these legs either maybe just hitting me on the elbows. So imagine these two pieces might just brace on my elbows. Or what I like to have is I like to have my hands much wider than my shoulders, and then also one hand forward, one hand back to stabilize this way. My hands are wide to stabilize this way, and then my hands are one forward, one back to stabilize this way. And so by doing this, then you can get much smoother. My favorite of all, of course, is having a scooter. And the nice thing with that is you don't have to just shoot while you're underway. Pretty much that whole wreck scene that you saw was all shot with the camera on the scooter, but I'm not actually flying the scooter around. I'm just holding it, and the scooter has so much mass that it really just makes for a super stable movement, so I can really slowly move things around. So thinking stability is probably what I found to be the most challenging with shooting video. doing a little time shift. So I'd like to walk through this rec video with you, just because I think it's something that you can do anywhere. And one thing that, as a still photographer, we always think about composition. And so what I try to do with video now, which is kind of fun, is I'll think, okay, can I go from one composition, composition one, and then do a really slow camera movement and end up on a composition number two. And so, in this scene, I've got, I had that kind of bow shot, and now I'm coming in kind of to composition two. So here's composition one, and I can do a nice slow lift with the camera. And then composition two might be now with a diver kind of going through. So it's kind of using those principles that you've learned with photography and then apply those to underwater. So here I'm actually running alongside this Russ here flying the scooter. In the rest of the scene, I'm just swimming. So I'm just kind of watching my buoyancy with my breath, trying to stay stable, and just concentrating the whole time on keep the camera steady, keep the camera steady. And so what I'd like to do is try to always have the camera moving. So if the subject's not moving, then the camera should be moving. And so then by doing that, you can give more impact to the scene and really do video justice. So this might be one exposure, and now I move to another part of the rec, and I have to reset that whole exposure for this scene. And I might have to do it twice, just so that by the time I get to here, I'm not too bright or too dark. So this is pretty shallow water. So for shooting this setup, I have almost run the same exposure for all the shots outside the rec. You'll notice that none of these shots had a lot of up and down movements of the camera. So everything's kind of staying horizontal. And by doing that, as the shooter, you can just stay focused on the composition and not keep adjusting. So, because basically when you adjust on the fly, you really run out of room on. Well, I run out of bandwidth in my brain because I seem to, once I get below 30 feet, I seem to get kind of stupid, and so I like to kind of get everything else out of the way so I can just focus on the composition. So we rolled into the water, we've knocked the bubbles off the lens, we've locked the focus, we set that white balance for depth. And we're kind of thinking zone-wise. So, what depth are we going to be working at? Okay, that's the white balance to use. What area are you going to shoot for this shot? That's going to be the exposure to run. And now, can I kind of, stay really stable and try to connect? Sometimes I really wonder, like, gosh, what do I point the camera at? So then I say, okay, well, let's just, frame up a still, right? That's one. And now let's move over and frame up a second still. Okay, that's two. And then now can I just make a slow movement from that one still to the second still? So of course, doing this in a compressed presentation like this we don't need to cover a lot of the details.